Hi, this is Thomas Mohbat with Recording Studio Forum. Thanks for coming in. I had a lot of friends of mine ask about this desk that I built to expand my workspace here a little bit. I used to have it kind of pushed up, almost up on the monitor, and the keyboard was right there, so I was very close to the monitor. But all I was operating was a mouse and my Mac keyboard. I didn't have any of this other stuff on here. And I wanted to expand a little bit to try to emulate a little bit of the feeling that I was getting working with an analog console. One of the things I liked working about with the analog console is the tactile environment, being able to quickly reach for a fader or an effect send or a headphone knob, especially when I'm working with bands. Being able to reach up and just grab a different headphone sends was really nice. Very quick, intuitive way to work. Also on mixing, I really like the feeling of just reaching and grabbing any one thing at any one time. The analog consoles are a little bit harder to automate compared to a DAW. In a DAW, you can automate everything and have it completely recallable, which is great. But I really miss the feeling of just reaching around on all those knobs and having to do everything with a little mouse. So I started researching ways that I could try to emulate that feel of working on an analog console, but have everything be recallable. And that's really important because you have clients coming back to work on projects, different songs, different projects, different bands, and you want to be able to jump from one song to another quickly and completely recall it up. Usually I'll get notes back on mixdown saying everything's great, but we want to just adjust a couple little things. Can you go in and do that? On a DAW, that's really easy. You just open the project. I usually save as a second or a new version and then make the changes, print it, and send it back to them. And that's a very good way to work as compared to working on an analog console where everything changes from day to day. This is my hybrid solution that kind of gives you the best of both worlds. I don't really use the console too much anymore except for tracking. On mixdowns, I'm getting more and more away from it. I used to run a lot of stems through the console, and I'll still do that from time to time. But I'm just finding that it's just much better just to take the time to do everything, automate everything in the computer. It takes a little more time. It's not quite as intuitive, but you can come back to it again and again, and it's very consistent. I've built this desk here out of a piece of just regular, I guess it's not really plywood. I think it's called project board. It's 1/2-inch board. I think it was a 3x4, something like that. And I just bought it. So it wasn't this color, and it didn't have this nice beveled trim on it either. I didn't want to have any sharp edges or corners. I cut it just so it fit in here just right for enough room for my keyboard and a MIDI controller, which I'll go into a little bit later. And but not put me so far back from the monitor that I had to strain my eyes or enlarge the monitor. So this is actually a really good working distance. So I got some trim and I put that on, glued that on, and also then I sanded it down until it was really smooth, no sharp edges. Filled all the little seams with wood filler, sanded it some more, and then this is not black paint, I got some black stain, wood stain, which you can get, and it has a real, kind of like a piano look to it. I didn't want a glossy, I wanted kind of a matte finish. So didn't cost me very much. The stain and the wood and the glue was, all under $100 for sure, probably more like $80. But the time it took to build was it took a good chunk of my weekend to do it, mainly because I wanted to sand it so fine and just make it really a nice piece of furniture. It mounts to an old keyboard stand that I've been using for years that still kind of holds up this shelf here, and I just basically built some little brackets on the bottom to bolt that to that stand. It has a little bit of flexibility to it. It's not really rigid, so it has a little give, but it's really sturdy. And that is the foundation for this whole new operation here. Really, the first thing that I'm going to go over is the main reason I built this desk was to get some fader control. I wanted to not mouse around anymore, one fader at a time or one click at a time. I did that for years and years and years and years, and then some more years. And I got very used to doing that way. If I wanted to automate something, clicking it on there and then moving the fader, adjusting it all. But I wanted to have more hands on deck. So I researched a lot of the different control surfaces. I think I was talking to the guy at Mark of the Unicorn about something, and he suggested that I look into this company called Icon. I hadn't heard of them. It's kind of not the most popular. There's other companies that make them. Mackie made them for a long time. There's a bunch of them, and they're all great. But I wanted something small. The first one I sent, I think I bought a used one off of Sweetwater, and they sent it to me. And it was pretty huge for 8 faders. It came out even farther than this one, and it took up the whole workspace. Fortunately or unfortunately, there was something wrong with it. The LED screen had some glitches on it, and I just didn't want to deal with that because I want to be able to see my track names there very clearly. And so I sent it back. It was fortunate, though. It was one of Icon's earlier controllers. And then they came out with this new series, and they were the same size. They had a lot more features, but it was still just taking up the whole space. And then I saw these little guys, these little P1-Ms, professional control surfaces from Icon, and they really fit the bill. As you can see, it fits in there very nicely. There's room in front of it for my keyboard, which is right where I want it, and my fader's right behind it. I didn't want to have it off to one side and the keyboard off to the other. I've seen a lot of guys do that. Well, they'll have one hand on each, but I wanted to have kind of centered like this so I could access anything with either hand. And I wasn't willing to give up my keyboard. I'm not trying to replace my keyboard because I'm just so used to using power commands over the years. I've even customized it a little bit with a lot of funny looking stickers and stuff on here, but I really know my way around little custom features that I set up in the commands setup section. And you can do that any way you want. But so my keyboard was working very well for me. I didn't want to change that. I wasn't trying to control every single parameter of the DAW. And I see a lot of guys getting frustrated because they can't access their plugins the way they want to. They can't quite get to everything the way they want to, like you can with a mouse. And I was like, not trying to reinvent the wheel. I just wanted to have some faders and some automation real quick. So if you're trying to do that, good luck to you having, every little plug-in. I'm still doing it. I just do it with my mouse, and that works fine for me. But in terms of automating, I really love it. You can do up to 8 channels at once. You can get your hands on all 8, as you can see. If you need more than that, you can expand these. You can get a second one or a third or even a fourth one. I think that's the limit, and have a full 24 tracks of fader automation. That would be really cool, especially if you didn't have a mixing console. That's something I might look into in the future, but I didn't need that right now. I just basically want it for automation and being able to adjust pans very quickly on the fly and automate those if I wanted to have something fly from left to right or anything like that. I'm not trying to do a lot of plug-in work or anything like that. I'm not even really using the transport control. It has one and it works fine. And you can start, stop, play, record, rewind, just about everything. I still am just used to using the enter key on my keyboard, as I've done for all my life. Using the space bar to stop and start, using my arrow and command keys a lot, and some F keys up here to do some zoom functions and things like that. I've got a button here that I use constantly assigned to fade, so I don't have to go into the menu and hit fade. I just hit that little blue star there, and that whatever I've got selected, that puts a fade on it. So that's something I do constantly. Anyway, I won't go too much more into the keyboard, but I wasn't trying to completely replace everything. These two work together for me just fine. It's got a little scroll wheel on it too, which is nice. If you wanted to use that, you can. I do sometimes, but I'm still more apt to just use my keyboard and my mouse to move things around, just because I'm so used to doing that, and it seems a little faster, a little more intuitive. But the Icon P1-M, I think you should really check it out. It works with just about all DAWs. There's this nice little meter bridge that you can purchase separately that just sort of slips in there. It's got 2 little pegs, and it hooks up with a little USB-C cable to power it, and you just drop that right in there. And it's got a little swivel on it, so you can adjust it to the angle you want. It wasn't too expensive to get that, but I really wanted to have that. You can operate the unit without it, of course, but like I said, I'm really trying to get away from doing everything on my screen and having some more controls here. So I have all my my track names right up there, which correspond to the mixer. So whatever you type in the mixer, Tom1, Tom2, Tom3, you'll see them right there, Tom1, Tom2. And it's a little bit abbreviated, but you'll get used to it, abbreviating your track names. It also has this feature that you can jump between banks. So I've just got banks of 8. Using these 2 keys here, I can jump to the next bank up, and it kind of hops over in banks of 8 back and forth, which is something I frequently do since I've just got the 8 tracks. If I want to go over to the vocal track or something like that, I can do that very quickly in groups of 8. And it shows you, I don't know if you can see, but it's got a little blue indicator on the bottom of the screen there that shows you which 8 you're looking at right there, if you can see that or not. It also has next to that, you can do them one at a time. You can just go through one track at a time. It hops over like that for a more detailed view. You can lock it. You can lock the machine so nobody can do anything with it. If you're stepping away for lunch or something, you want to lock it, you can do that. It's also got all of the automation parameters here: read, trim, write, latch, touch. So you don't have to go up to the screen anymore and do that. You can select your channels. That's all about selection here. You just select whatever channels you want to work on, one or more, and you can use the Shift key to do that. You should hold Shift and select multiple tracks like that. I'm not going to go too much into the depths of automation recording. There's a lot to it, of course, but you can adjust all the parameters right here without having to go to the screen so much in groups, however you please, for automation. It's got some shuffle and navigation features as well. There's also a button for focus, which allows you to, whatever you've got selected, say an effect send or something like that. Once you've got the mouse on that, you can turn the knob and it'll adjust the send. But for me, it's like by the time I've got my mouse on it, I'm just going to go ahead and make the adjustment. I don't need to have a middleman, you know. So, but you can do it with the wheel as well if you like, with the focus feature. One of the main things that I do like about this unit and that stood out from the rest, all the units I looked at have a little switch pad here that you can adjust, you can select and adjust things with that. You get a little switch pad. This is the only model that has a programmable one, which is super nice. All the others, the buttons were kind of fixed, and depending on the DAW you had, some of the functions weren't available. This is completely configurable using a little software that comes with it. It's called P1-M mix map. You can just open that little app, and with a little P1-M mix map, you can see that on the screen. General settings, but go right over to button functions, and you can totally drag and drop all the functions you want. There's 5 different windows, 1, 2, 3, and 2 users, but they're all user adjustable, which is nice. I don't use all 5 of them. I really don't need to have that much control, but it's certainly there if you want it. I just use the main screen. The top one is the one I always use, and I don't even use all the slots in that. But you can, just by dragging and dropping these little buttons around, you can configure it however you want. You can delete buttons you don't want to use. And if you run out of room on the first page, basically, you can just switch over to the next one down. Another whole bank of buttons right there. There's just a few functions that I use frequently, and those are on my top page right there. And when you're done, you can save that file and put that someplace safe. So if you want to ever recall that or make changes, or there's a problem, you can just drag that in there, and you've got your performer file saved. It also adjusts what kind of how many different units you've got. If you've got more than one, also the type of DAW you're using. I'm using Digital Performer, and it works very well with that. I gotta say, I haven't found any features that I can't access. It's also the place where you're gonna do any firmware upgrades, which you should do to make sure you've got the latest version. But once you've got it, save that, store it someplace, and then close it. You really don't have to ever open it again unless you're making changes. So what I'll typically do is turn on my computer, turn on my icon unit, and then power up my DAW. Then as you close and open different sessions, it will shut down. It'll pull all the faders to 0 and pull them back up every time you want to make a change. That's complete automation there. That's what I'm talking about. It's also got a nice little counter here, but you can have SMPTE time code, whatever you want right there. It's a nice little feature. And I really like the color coordinated bars at the bottom. That's something new, and it totally reflects whatever you got on the screen. My drums in red, my cymbals in yellow typically, my bass orange, guitars in blues and greens, then my vocals in dark blues, so on and so forth all the way up. As you can see, as I'm going through here, it's switching the screen as well, if necessary. So every time you go off the screen, it'll shift over. Super nice. Oh, the last little thing I'll say is if it has a little function here, if you want, you can press this little button that says master, and that'll turn your 8th fader into the master fader just for a second. So you can do a fade out on the whole song if you wanted to, like that. Real handy. They used to have an extra 9th fader for that, but they've just incorporated that into fader number 8. And then when you're not using it as a master, you turn it off and it goes back to whatever the track is there. Super nice feature. Also, having those pans is great. You can use those for other things, like I said, for plugins, but I primarily use it for pan controls. Being able to go in there and adjust my panning instead of doing them one at a time with the mouse is super nice, and it's more like I used to do on my mixing board. A little more intuitive and tactile. So that's the Icon P1-M Professional Control Surface, and I'm using it with Digital Performer. And the meter bridge is called the D4T. I think I waited for them to pop up on Amazon on a good, they were including the meter bridge basically for free, and it had a good price on Amazon. So I've never had any problems with it. And yes, the jog wheel is clickable, so you can make it go up or down. You can also use it to zoom in or out, which is nice if you don't want to use your keyboard, but I still use my keyboard. And you can go up and down too if you want to. This is zooming in and out vertically or horizontally. If you want to open up your tracks and zoom better, you can. You can also go to the other side and do move. So if you wanted to move left to right or up and down, you can. But I usually don't touch any of that. I just count on that for a basic jog wheel. If I need any, I'm not even going to reach for that very much. I put a little rubber foot on that just to give it a little more grip. I also put 4 of those little rubber feet on the bottom of the unit so it doesn't slip around on it stays put on this nice finished piece of wood. It was sliding around a little bit too much, and I want it to really stay put. The cords for the keyboard go nicely underneath with that, with those feet bringing up just enough to get some cord room underneath there, so I can move this out. I can move the whole unit out closer or farther. Very easy to move around. I can even move them left and right if I want to, but never really do that. And one of the main features I like about it is, I won't go into all of the different buttons that I have here, but the ones that I really like the most are, instead of reaching up here and going between tracks, sequence, and mixing board, and sometimes MIDI, those are the 4. I never really use clips, but tracks and sequence and mixing board, I'm always hopping back and forth between, and you have to do that with a mouse. I think there's a way you can do it with a shift key or something like that, but I've assigned it to the top buttons up here, so I can just hit there, tracks, sequence editor, mixing, and MIDI. Really fast way to jump, and I don't have to grab my mouse. I can just do that. So that's a really nice, especially hopping back and forth between mixing and sequence. Just beautiful. So that's the Icon P1-M Professional Controller Surface. The best little bang for the buck I've found. I think you'll really like it, and it works very well with just about all DAWs. Okay, I'm going to get back to work here. I appreciate your tuning in, and if you've got any questions about any of the gear that I've talked about today, just drop me a line in the comments below, or an email is fine, and I'll get right back to you. Aloha from Hilo, Hawaii. Shoots!